Matt!
Hey,
Matt Bertholic. Oh my goodness. It's so good to see you, brother. How are you?
you too, man. I'm doing good. Doing good.
So
It's early where I am. Not as early as it is there. It's
you
earlier.
are you are in the Washington State, not
Yeah.
Seattle side,
No, not Seattle. I'm on the other side. So
the other
Spokane, Washington area.
Spokane, Washington. Oh man, that is so good to see you. I have thought about our relationship for a while now. That I've been thinking about calling you and talking to you about something, and then this lesson about love just came up, and I was like, oh, I got to call Matt because you have done something to show love to some kids that weren't your own. So I wanted to hear more about that.
Okay. Um, so are you talking about me taking them to the new Chick-fil-A in town?
Yeah, not so much.
'Cause
More of
it,
how many kids do you have on your own, like your own natural born kids?
well, we have three kids that were born to us.
Three kids, and they are
Yeah.
ages.
18, 14, and 6.
Yeah. And then you have how many other kids that you have adopted?
We have four other kids that we've adopted.
And how many teenagers?
Well, they're all teenagers except for the 6-year-old.
Oh my goodness. That
Yeah.
is a crazy household, I'm sure.
It's not as crazy as you'd think, actually. We've been very blessed. But yeah, I do have people who, when I tell them that I have a 19-year-old and an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old and a 6-year-old, they look at me and they go, they're just in shock. And there's always a couple of comments, but um, one of them being, you know how that happens, right? And I said, I do, through adoption. It's fascinating.
It's so awesome.
Never planned on having all of those, but it wasn't up to us. It's God's plan. God's the one who grows families, right?
There you go. I love that. So tell everybody how we know each other.
Um, so how, wow, that's a while ago. For me, it was, you were a children's pastor at a church in Santa Cruz, California, Santa Cruz
Yep.
Bible Church. Yeah. And I guess I was probably about 22 or so. And I came down to the church. You were like remodeling or something, your children's ministry stuff. And you had this really sweet puppet stage. It was made out of wood and it was all done up nice, that had been there for a while. And I was doing something with my church in Spokane. And I thought it'd be really cool to have that, because even about 10 years before that, I had been at Santa Cruz Bible Church with my family before we had moved away when they built the thing. And so when you said, hey, we're getting rid of this, we're upgrading. And I said, ooh, I want it. I want it. And so I was able to come down and get that from you. And that was the time we met. And then lo and behold, a few years later, I moved back down to California, where my wife and I got married. And we hung out for a few years there at Church on the Hill and
Yeah.
at Achiever, working at the school and going to church there and participating. And so,
My favorite thing about all that was that you helped us. You were counselors during our summer day camp,
yeah,
and that was when I really got to know you
yeah,
a little bit better, because we were together every day through 8 weeks of the summer, and I
yeah,
was just like always amazed. You always had some great skits you were going to do with the other counselors, and I remember one. I think you were walking down the amphitheater steps, and you were kind of doing a dialogue, like a narration through it. And I can't remember the story, but you were so good with the kids. They absolutely loved having you as a counselor.
Yeah, that was fun. But it was a really good team. So the team dynamic was really good. You had a lot of good people working together. Tim Brady, Stan Vitus, those guys were rock solid. And I'm still good friends with Stan, even though he's hasn't yet, taken the steps to get out of California. But he is. It was. Those were good years. Those are definitely good years. Enjoyed that. I appreciate you being patient enough to keep me there and not kick me out.
Oh man, it was a joy having you. So tell me about this love that you have for these kids, and how did that all come about?
Well, speaking of kids, I got one right here.
Hi.
I told you it was early where we are, so she's just waking up.
You're so big now.
I know. She's so big. She's 6 years tall.
Well, tell her to stop smiling so much.
Yeah.
Oh, like it didn't work. She just walked away. Oh.
She's my kid. She has these. She knows those jokes.
I gotcha. Oh, well, I tried.
So, love in the form of adoption. It's not as lovey-dovey as a lot of conversations about love. So we have 4 adopted kids, and 2 of them are sisters that we adopted from America.
Actually 3, but 1.
Hold on just a second. Don't interrupt. And then we have 2 that are adopted from overseas that are brother or sister.
Oh, okay.
Now, in both those situations, not in both those situations, normally adoption, you don't know a lot of details about who you're adopting. And so, you think about marriage and you think, well, we meet, we fall in love, we get married because we want to spend the rest of our lives together. Adoption is different most of the time. We might not have met. We might not know anything about each other, and we choose to adopt based on our choice, not mutual feelings necessarily. Mm-hmm. A lot of times that is the case when it comes to adoption. And so we learned through this that God, when it talks about adoption in the Bible, God adopting us as his children, it talks about that quite a bit, where he has adopted somebody based on his choice to do it, not based on what they've done to be his children.
So good, brother.
And so that has been our experience in the adoption process. 8 years ago, when we adopted the 2 sisters from America, all the way wherever America is, and it took about 9 months.
Dad, are you freaking?
And it took about 9 months, and what we ended up doing, which is how long it takes to have a baby. So that was kind of cool. You find out you're going to have a baby, you're pregnant for 9 months, and then baby. Yeah. So there's some training involved. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a whole lot of paperwork. There's a lot of waiting. It seems like you're waiting a long time. In this situation, it was 9 months, but some people wait years to get through the paperwork and the stuff that they need to get through to adopt. And then there's that moment where you get matched with the kid or kids that you're going to adopt. And then all the excitement, it's like, here's what we're going to name the baby. Here's what we're going to, it's going to be a boy or it's going to be a girl. All that excitement that's building up when you're pregnant. This was those kinds of things. And then you meet the kids. Now, when we adopted, our kids weren't babies. They were kids. They were first grade, second grade. The second adoption, the kids were 17 and 14. So they were people. And now it's, how do I do this? How, hi, I'm now your dad. Hi. And
Hi.
it just takes time. It takes consistency. It takes openness, just being real. And we got, so the two sisters in the beginning, we got, they moved in with us. We had about a 6-month period where if things didn't work out, we could decide not to do it, which seems weird. We kind of approached it as we approached having a baby. If you have a baby and 6 months later you decide,
this isn't working out for me,
you give her back. Yeah, never think like that. So,
yeah.
But then you go into a courthouse and you stand before a judge. And there are there's two other people there. You've got the judge and then you have two attorneys. You have you have the one who is in your side and then you have the one who is on the side of the state. And I remember very clearly, this was so vivid to me. Everybody's there. We had a lot of people in the courtroom, friends, family, and the one attorney who was on the side of the state. Well, he was on the side of us. He wasn't like trying to talk us out of it or anything like that, or saying that we shouldn't do it. He was there, but he asked a couple of questions and he said, do you realize, are you willing? Basically, he says, are you willing? And do you understand the fullness of this decision, that in the event that you were to die, your adopted kids are going to have all of the same rights and all the same privileges as your biological kids? As far as inheritance go. Do you realize that in the event of you and your wife divorcing, that you would have to be responsible just as much for the adopted kids as you would for your biological kids? Do you understand? And they were talking about it in these terms. And then what they did is they said, okay, they gave us a new birth certificate for our adopted kids. Now, the birth certificate, that's something that you get at the hospital when your kids are born. So we weren't there with our adopted kids when they were born, but they gave us a new birth certificate to make it official.
Wow.
And on the birth certificate, it has their name. And then down at the bottom for father and mother, even though we were not the ones who had them, it had our names. And this was a new official document. They got a brand new identity, official birth certificate, as if they were born to us. And I thought, isn't that like what God does with us?
So good.
He has adopted us. The old is gone. The new is here. And that kind of love, it's not a lovey-dovey feeling. It's a love that it changes who you are. You have this new identity. You are this new person. It doesn't change completely everything about you. You're still you, but it changes, but you've become something. You become something else. You become something new. It's added into your account, who you are.
Oh, brother, that is so good.
Yeah.
So we tell the story of Paul when he was going to go to Rome and he was going to be tried and he was going to be put in front of a judge and they sailed and then they stopped sailing but then they said, oh, we're just going to keep sailing even though it's getting to be the time of year that it's bad weather. And Paul's like, no, an angel told me not to do that. Tells you not. The angel told me to tell you guys not to sail, and they're just like, we're the sailors. We know what's best. We know how to do this. Just you be quiet. You just go sit down over there. And so they decided to sail on, but then, the bad storm took over. And then, they figured out that Paul was just trying to love them in his way, just like you're trying to love these kids that really aren't yours, but now they are. And you're trying to live it out, living out the love. You can say all day long, I love you, I love you, I love you. But unless you live it out, it doesn't mean anything. So you are living it out right in front of these kids. You're living out the love you have for them. And it's not something that you just feel naturally, because, the feeling that you were describing is something that you feel naturally for your own kids that you helped bring into this world. But this is a brand new set of circumstances with these kids. Now they are your children. They have been adopted into your family, just like we have been adopted into God's family. So living it out is the most important part. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. And that's, and it's a lot like marriage in the fact that I made a choice and my wife made a choice. 20 years ago this year is when we got married. And we made a choice in front of God and all the people that were there that this is what we were going to do. And then we committed to that, which is crazy, because if we had known what our life was going to be like and all of the stuff, I mean, that is a huge decision. And I don't think if people knew all of that stuff ahead of time, I don't know that we'd have as many people getting married or having children, because there's a lot involved. There's a lot of joy, a lot of blessing, but there's challenges, and there's times when you don't get to sleep in as much as you want to. And there's times when the toast is burnt. And I mean, there are challenges. There's global pandemics. There's challenges.
Yeah.
And one thing that we've learned, especially about, love and what you were talking about. Yeah, there is the kind of love that is a choice, and that's unconditional. Those kind of big choices, adoption, marriage, those kinds of big choices. But then there are the daily things you can do to express love.
That is right on, brother.
Yeah, and that's not just. Sometimes it's just a word. Just an unselfish word, a kind word. Sometimes it's just doing a chore that somebody doesn't like to do, and you decide to do it for them.
Right.
It might just be a hug.
Yeah. It
might just be, a gift. It might be hanging out with somebody for a little while. I mean, those are all ways to show people, and those are choices, but just little things that you can do here and there to let somebody know that they're important to you. They're special. So
good, brother. So good. I'm so proud of you guys. So awesome.
Thanks.
So one last thing. Would you pray for the families and the kids that are watching, that God would just, reveal, because I know God tries to do that to us. He tries to prove his love for us every day. We just don't see it most of the time. We're not aware of it. And I would love for you to pray that, that God's love that he's trying to show us every day would make, we would be open to see it. Just like, when your kids, when you do something for your family or you do something for your wife, it's a little bit out of the ordinary, that's just you trying to prove that you love them. So I would love for you to pray, brother.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
God, thanks for this time. Thanks for who you have here right now, who's listening to this and who's paying attention and wondering, what is love? What is it that you have done for us? And how that makes a difference in our lives, Lord. We can't love outside of you, really. Bible tells us that you are love, and the Bible tells us that we love because you loved us. And so, God, I just pray that we would understand your love for us, that we would start to understand, or that we would grow in our understanding of that love, that you would open our hearts and open our lives, open our minds so that we can understand that. Because it's who you are and what you've done for us that makes us who we are and what we then are able to do for others and for you. And so just pray for each one of these kids. I pray that they would experience your love, your kindness to us, your forgiveness to us, your mercy, your strength, your power, your presence, the things in our lives that draw us closer to you and encourage us throughout the days that we are in. Thank you. I pray for their families. Lord, I pray that you draw them all closer and that you would keep them safe and secure in you. I pray these things, God, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen, Matt. Oh, so good to catch up with you, brother. Thanks for joining me. And
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And tell all your kids that to stop smiling so much.
Stop smiling so much. Okay. We'll do it.
What'd she say?
She's right here. She's hearing the whole conversation off screen. She gave that same look. She's just like.
I know that look well because I see it from my grandkids now.
Oh,
they're like, Poppy, we know that one.
There's a smile.
Oh, I see it. Thank you. Are you losing some teeth?
I want two.
Yeah. She lost them on purpose.
Yeah. Well, nobody punched you or anything?
No. But my brother punched him in the face when he went to the dentist. He didn't want any shots. And he bleeded everywhere.
Yeah.
That happens.
Now Aaron wants to give me knuckle sandwiches. Now I don't.
She seems like she'd be a good act out star.
Yeah.
I can see him.
We've done a couple. So do you still do those?
Oh man, I love it. I do them as often as I can. But hey, thanks, Matt. Love you guys.
All right. Take care. We'll see you guys later.